Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Joy, and today I'm talking El Politico politics, specifically Kamala Harris and why she is not African American. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that to say that she is somehow not black enough, because that'll be what both that the left turns it into and the right will try to use as their own talking points, is that people are saying Kamala isn't black enough and that she doesn't deserve to be the first black anything. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, one, Kamala Harris is not African American, and nowhere in her lineage would we define her as African American. And number two, she's definitely not ADOS, American Descendant of Slavery. Before I get started on my long rant, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button and like the video. I do appreciate you liking that, hitting that like button. And if you want more content when I'm talking ADOS, go ahead and hit that notification bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. Trying to do a lot of stuff on ADOS as the election approaches, and then more stuff, of course, on like black business, black celebrity, and the whole spectrum. Okay, but let me get to the topic today. Of course, Joe Biden finally announced who he's choosing, or whoever chose for him, as his vice presidential running mate for this upcoming election. Is Donald Trump and Pence, of course. And we knew all along this was going to happen. ADOS, we knew this was going to happen. We knew he was going to pick Kamala, because he's Jim Crow Biden, author of mass incarceration and that 90s crime bill that is, wiped out generations, really, of black families. So we knew he was going to pick top cop Kamala Harris. Not a surprise. But what is surprising, because we often see Kamala touted in, media as, first this, first that, is this fact that people simply can't understand the term African American. Excuse me, yeah, of course, English undergrad. That has nothing to do with this. It has to do with the fact that in calling Kamala Harris African American, that denotes her as being descendant from American slavery, which means a descendant of American slavery has could ascend to one of the highest offices in the nation, that is the vice presidency and presidency. We know Barack Obama wasn't ADOS. He's not African American, Kenyan father and a white mother born in Kansas. He wasn't ADOS or African American. And so when people call her African American, that is what it means. That is what it signifies. And it's just not true. So the term African American came about, some people say it's been used ever since the 1700s, but really the way it's popularly used over the last couple decades was really coined by Jesse Jackson, I believe, and some folks correct me from, but I believe that is correct. Jesse Jackson, that's what I've known my whole life, to get away from the term colored or black, but and to also signify a Pan-Africanism that developed after, post-civil rights. So, this group of people in America, this group of black people descended from chattel slavery, and I think it's also important to know that this is happening post-Civil War, post-Immigration Act of the 1960s that started bringing non-ADOS black people to the United States. So we're seeing two things. We're seeing a move away from the terms colored and black because, we're getting multiple waves of immigrants in, and black or colored doesn't explain when you have people that are coming over and their skin is also black, or you have other, colored people of color that we call it now, coming over. Then how do we know African American? So that's one way. And then two, it's this, we see evolving after the civil rights movement, post-slavery, really, this idea of Pan-Africanism, and that will lead us to liberation. And so we get this one note back to the transatlantic slave trade and being brought over from Africa, sold and brought over from Africa into slavery. And then two, we also get we get to denote ourselves from other groups. And so at no point when I define African American did I say any and every black person. This is a specific group of people, one, African Americans is a specific group of people, one, that have descended from American chattel slavery. That is the distinguishing factor. And two, do not identify as direct descendants of another country, i.e. Jamaica, Haiti, Ghana, Nigeria, England. I don't think that's hard to understand. And so for those reasons, Kamala Harris, who, she's been in politics for decades now, ran for president, so we know her background. Her mother is born in India. I believe it's pronounced Chennai, India. Came to the United States as a student and teacher. I'm looking at this pages, and, it's saying that her mother was, of course, she was a cancer researcher and a doctor, but it's also saying she was a civil rights activist. What civil rights she fought for, you're going to have to inform me on that, because I couldn't find them. One of these articles I'm looking at BBC is kind of softballing it. But I say all to say that her mother was born in India. Kamala was born in America. That's what makes her American, not the fact that her mother was American. And so the other half of that is Kamala's father. Let me go back and say her mother's name. It is, I want to make sure I get it. I believe it's pronounced Shamala Gopalan Harris. And so that's her name, her mother's name. And then her father, Donald Harris, born in Jamaica, who goes on to be a longtime economics professor at Stanford. That's how he gets here. They're both in the Bay Area. Kamala's mother and father, they meet, marry, and have Kamala and her sister Maya Harris. Again, at no point am I referring to either Kamala's mother or father as descended from American chattel slavery. There have even been reports that in Kamala's father's side, he may not even be fully black. Think of Jamaican, we think black, but he may not be fully black, considering that a lot of Jamaicans have both European and South Asian ancestry. So he might not be even fully black. But the second part of that is that Donald Harris has personally traced his lineage back to a white man with the last name of Brown, who Brownstown, Jamaica was named after. And, I'm seeing some reports that this man had the Brown who, Kamala's dad and her descend from had upwards of 200 slaves in Jamaica. Again, her mother from India, where we've seen some of the cruelest forms of caste system, just like we see in the United States. I often refer to AWS as a bottom caste, because that's what we've been cemented as after centuries of slavery and then, centuries of oppression. Also so they also have a caste system. So for these reasons, Kamala is not African American, and she's not ADOS. She's not descended from slavery. Now, let me say this right after the fact that she is black. She is a black American, as is defined today. Black American is defined as people who are descended from the continent of Africa, African countries, and a black man who is from Jamaica, not being indigenous to the island. Donald Harris, her father, then obviously has lineage somewhere in Africa, whether that means somewhere in his lineage there's a slave, or black people who immigrated from Africa to Jamaica at some point. And then not only is her lineage not African American ADOS, but I don't believe that Kamala's actually lived an African American or ADOS life. Now let me get this out of the way. Yes, she graduated from Howard, a historically black college and university. And yeah, she pledged AKA, a historically black sorority. But those two things don't make you black. Case in point, Rachel Dolezal, who also graduated from HBCU. And we know she's not black. Unlike predominantly white institutions, HBCUs have never discriminated. So of course, they invite all people into their halls of academia. So those two things, being from Howard, having graduated from Howard and being an AKA, doesn't make her African American or a descendant of American chattel slavery. Not only that, but she's not lived this 8 0. She was raised. Her formative years were spent in Canada, I believe Toronto. Formative meaning her high school years. She went to high school in Canada, came back to the United States to go to college. And unlike most ADOS people, she has family in India and Jamaica that she could travel to see. Specifically, she traveled to India yearly to visit her family, both growing up and as an adult. don't really see mention of her going to Jamaica and spending time with that part of her family. But throughout all of this, at no point has Kamala descended from slavery, American slavery, which would define her as an African American, or live the life that so many ADOS African American people do as a bottom caste here. In fact, her mother's side and seemingly her father's side are descended from the highest caste in India and wealth in Jamaica. Not only that, you can marry who you want to, but it's her family is her immediate family is also not black. So her husband and stepchildren are white. Making sure I hit all my notes here. And I'm coming to this because a lot of blue checks are on Twitter are saying, first African American, Kamala is the first African American to be on the vice presidential ticket, or the first African American statewide senator in California, first African American AG. None of that is true. She's black, sure, but she's not African American. Stop attaching her to a lineage that she did not live, a lineage that she has not earned, a story that is not hers. None of it is hers. Not only black blue checks, but white people saying, who is this guy I've been looking at? Matthew Chapman. Apparently he's some kind of reporter. Talking about ADOS is equivalent to TERFs. That's offensive. No, we're just specific. Just like every other ethnic group is specific. Hispanics are specifics. Koreans, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Haitians, New Zealanders, Pacific. It's all very specific. Hundreds of tribes in the United States of indigenous folks. Hundreds, thousands probably of tribes throughout the continent of Africa. And yet, ADOS, African Americans, are the only group that can't be specific in who and what we are. And everyone and everybody can opt into it. And this probably has a legacy way back with the one-drop rule. But we're saying right now, enough is enough. Not any and everybody can come in and define themselves as African American and sit on that pedestal, and it would be a pedestal because we came from a long damn way of building, having it destroyed, putting in work, not getting what we've earned for it. All these things. So, of course, I'm not voting for Kamala or Biden for the reasons mass incarceration, her putting people, thousands of people in jail for marijuana charges, and we see people flaunting how much marijuana they can grow on the internet every day. No remorse, except she can go on the Breakfast Club and joke about smoking weed. We all know that was a lie, never happened, or at least not when she said it did. And Jim Crow Biden, who since he's been in political office, we've known that he is racist, perpetuates the white supremacist idea all through the mass incarceration. What was it, 95? Still having effects today. Refuses to admit any remorse for it. In the time of Black Lives Matter and these protests and saying defund police and we want to see change. Not loud enough about reparations, but with all those things still happening, you choose the author of the mass incarceration bill and a top cop AG prosecutor, a bad prosecutor at that, to represent the Democratic Party. And you're supposed to get folks out there wanting to vote for you, folks like me. I can't see it happening. But this, again, this is for the detractors who I'm seeing are saying that first, just like false and won't admit that you're wrong, that Kamala Harris is African American. It's just bad reporting. It's bad research. She is not. You think reporters and print media, online media would want to get their facts correct? That's what editors are supposed to do. They want to be straight. She didn't earn it, so she can't have it. And then, this doesn't represent what we think it does. A true progressive candidate, one, obviously, who is day one a reparations advocate, and two, someone who is actually African American. That would be something to celebrate. But we're not there yet. So until then, folks, that's what I got. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Appreciate you listening, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.